Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would chat with you guys a little bit about misconceptions and the two different sides of the argument of the whole calories in versus calories out. And I thought, I'll go ahead and just do a bunch of my speed pulls from a couple of workouts in the background here because people can see that I've lost 100 pounds of fat. I've got enough loose skin, especially when that belt's pulled over, that it's pretty clear I've lost pretty significant amounts of body fat to be at a healthy body fat. And there's a whole backstory as to why I got sick and gained a bunch of weight while I was sick and everything, but that's a totally separate topic. But the point is, I obviously know a little bit about fat loss at this point in the game. And the thing that I think people get wrong when we discuss this whole calories in versus calories out topic is that people on the other end, the hormone end of it, seem to refuse to acknowledge the fact that it's pretty indisputable at this point. It is pretty indisputable. Now, what some of the people who are just as much zealots on the other side refuse to acknowledge is that it's more than calories in. And that's the problem with the people who talk about the pure macro counting and who say things like, well, it's just calories in, calories out. Keto doesn't matter. Intermittent fasting doesn't matter. Clean versus dirty food doesn't matter. And when people say things like that, they are literally just as ignorant as the other side. Like they actually have no grounds from which to speak if that's the point they're making. And the reason I say that is that number one, those other factors absolutely determine individual diet adherence. Hormone levels can absolutely affect appetite. They can affect hunger. They can affect energy output, and I mean both in terms of physical activity, like the amount of NEAT that you do, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Yeah. They can affect actual thermic effect. So therein lies our confusion that a lot of people in both camps who don't find balance between the two fail to grasp. These strategies themselves, whether it's, again, eating a clean diet, avoiding certain foods, food avoidance, doing a keto diet, doing a low-fat diet, whatever it is that you happen to be following, a paleo diet, these are not the mechanisms by which we lose body fat. We lose body fat by energy expenditure. But they absolutely will control energy intake and energy output. They are factors. And people have to understand that. I mean, let's go as simple as the subject of clean foods versus dirty foods. And I know that's a very arbitrary title. But facts are facts. When we look at a lot of whole foods, we know that they oftentimes have a higher thermic effect to process by the body. It could easily be, depending upon, say, the carbs or fats or whatever you're eating. Let's set aside the protein aspect, because we know protein has the highest thermic effect. At least people who track macros admit that. They understand that. Protein has a high thermic effect. It is not the same calories in versus out as other macronutrients. But it's the same with your other foods. Meaning a lot of whole foods, when we study it, burn more calories in the actual process of getting to those calories. We have to deal with the thermic effect of that. That could actually mean 100 extra calories a day. It could be, in some cases, maybe 150 calories a day of eating a mostly junk food diet for the same calories versus eating it in whole foods. On the energy output equation, it could actually be 100 or 150 calories difference on the output side, even if the input side is the same. So the calories in versus calories out are affected by that. How about the appetite end? Are whole foods more satiating usually than more refined foods? Yeah, as a general rule. And by the way, I follow a keto diet. Don't even get me started on the keto people who want to pour oil on everything. All right, you guys are ridiculous. I'm going to call that like it is. Those who want to put coconut oil in everything, or who want to put butter in their coffee, all right, you people are, again, being absurd. Let's go back over to all this stuff with refined foods, thermic effect, satiety. That is absolutely not the best approach. Not the best approach at all. But that's a side note. So this affects appetite. You're going to eat less food more easily, because here's what it comes down to. Calories in versus calories out also means you have to be able to consistently follow the intake. If you're eating foods that fill you up better, and they're not your trigger foods for binge eating and all of that, you're going to tend to adhere to your diet better. So whole foods-based diets, as a general rule, you're going to put out a little bit more energy output on the thermic side. You're going to be able to control the intake end a little bit better. Or you're going to usually, for most people, have better adherence. That's going to usually equal more success. So this is the problem we have with that. You've got the people on the other side who only want to track macros, who take the more extreme fringe into that. But you need to look at that. This is one reason a lot of the bros are successful. It's not because, oh, it's the hormones or you burn more fat, all this nonsense they come up with. It comes down to the fact that they might be burning more calories and taking less in eating their bro diet. They might think that they're breaking the rules of calories in versus calories out, and they're wrong. But are they being successful? Are they getting the desired results? And most of the time they are. The majority of people who follow cleaner whole food based diets of some type tend to lose body fat and keep it off easier than the people who don't. They also tend to have better body composition. Even if they're ignorant as to why it is, they still tend to get results, don't they? And it's the same with a lot of these diets, because they're viable strategies. And that's not even the only energy out part of the equation. How about the fact that people who eat heavily refined diets, a lot of refined carbs, everything else, they tend to be a little more sluggish. They tend to be a little more insulin resistant. Well, that'll affect your energy output on the neat side. That could affect everything from your training to the amount of moving around you do, because maybe you feel sluggish and you don't feel your best. People who follow diets that are slower digesting foods, that are more whole foods, are going to tend to feel slightly better. They're going to tend to be more active. And I'm not stating that as a hard rule. We can put that one in pencil. They're going to tend to be a little more active. So we now have 3 mechanisms already by which more whole food based diets, even if we tried to follow the same macros, are going to tend to skew the calories in versus calories out equation. They don't break it. And that's what the people who follow these diets, a lot of the bros who are listening to me say that, they're going to say, aha, see, we were right. No, you're wrong. It has nothing to do with, it's hormones. No, you're still working within calories in, calories out. You're still going to burn body fat based upon your caloric deficit, identical to the person who sits around drinking nothing but whey protein and eating pixie sticks and Snickers bars. Okay? It's still your calorie deficit. Your calorie deficit is going to burn the exact same amount of fat that theirs does. However, you're probably going to eat less total calories. You're probably going to burn more calories. And here's the other thing. Let's get to the big kicker. Energy output and health and recovery is going to affect body composition. It's going to affect muscle mass better. Someone who can train harder and feels better is probably going to retain muscle better. They're going to have better body composition. They're going to have better body composition. And muscle mass absolutely affects metabolic rate. So when we talk about this calories in versus calories out thing, people need to understand there is a middle ground with all of it. It's not that it's just calories in. The calories in that you eat and maybe the amount of protein, that's all that matters. That's not where people are saying. We're talking about the balance between the two. We're talking about the balance between the two. Because the sort of calories that you take in will affect your future intake based upon the way it affects your appetite. It will affect the thermic effect of your food. It will affect your energy levels. It will affect the amount of calories that you put out through multiple pathways on the other side. And that's what we have to remember in this discussion. That has to be remembered. And it's something that people on both fringe sides of the argument get wrong, that I think most reasonable coaches and trainers and dietitians understand. They understand this, that it is calories in, calories out. But we have to have tools in place to help us get there. The majority of people who struggle with body fat are never going to be successful on these really flexible dieting approaches. They're just not. There are exceptions to that rule, but it comes down to individual personality types. And the bros on the other side have to understand that no amount of clean eating is going to let you strip off 10 pounds of body fat without a caloric deficit. It's just not going to happen without using drugs. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.